I cut off contact with a lot of my friends and family because I knew that it wasn't healthy for me, but I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh shoot, I got to be a whole new person. Old Shayna sucks and we got to get rid of her. We got to change her completely. She has to have all new friends, all new hobbies. That's not that girl anymore. And I look back and that's the one thing is like, I wish I would have done it differently. I wish that I would have learned that like, hey, this is a new slate and you can slowly start to figure out what's good for you and what's not good for you. I took it like a very extremist type of like, okay, guys, like no more like, I really did. I kind of went off the grid for a little bit. And I've slowly started to learn about myself. I've learned how to bring people into my life again that like, because those were my friends, those were my family that I did love, but I just was showing up as a toxic person as for myself. But it was a positive slate. And now I'm learning that there's nothing wrong with old Shayna. She is good. She's here, actually. Like she's
Yeah.
sitting here. I've just learned that I was doing things that like didn't serve me because I was identified with a little girl who grew up like, with low self-esteem or who was hurt, who was abused in some ways, who was neglected. And now I've learned that all those people that I surrounded myself with weren't bad. I wasn't bad. They weren't bad. It was just that like I'm learning now how to show up with these new relationships as myself.
Hmm.
But I will say it's very difficult so for example, you didn't know old Shayna, but all the people who did know old Shayna, I'm sure it's difficult to meet me again and be like, wait, what the hell? You're not going to go get my dog at 3 in the morning? You've never said no to me. Like, that part of it has been really hard for me because it's not that I'm like brand new and I'm doing all these new things. It's just that like my values and my morals, I stand up for myself now.
You've grown.
I've grown up.
You've grown.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
evolved. Like
Yeah.
I think about that stuff constantly. Like I think about, who I was even like 3 years ago
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
5 years ago, like let alone like I think all the time, and it doesn't really matter, but I think all the time, like, what do people I was around when I was like 20 years old think of me now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are
Yeah.
they like, oh, there's the Ross like that? Because like I tried to never be like a bad person,
Sure.
but everybody does stupid things. Everybody
Sure.
acts dumb and I for sure for a while, like I think I was 50-50 on like really wanted I was my own person. And then the other 50% was I will please everyone around me and I will do exactly what they do and say exactly what they say.
Yeah.
So again, like it is identifying that like I identify all the time, like genuinely, this might sound over exaggerated and silly, but like I feel like every 6 months I'm different.
I love that. Yeah.
Like, and that doesn't mean that I'm changing courses and I'm like, I don't want to do video stuff anymore. I don't want to do a podcast. Like, I'm still doing all those things, but I'm learning to understand maybe those things or my life or just life in general or myself better.
Yeah.
To where it's like, just like you were saying, like, oh man, if I talk to somebody who remembers quote unquote old Shayna, I wonder what they'll think of me now of not going and getting their dog at 3 in the morning. And I think about that of, again, like friendships that I've even had in the last like 3 years, where I'm like, yeah, like I'm not even that same person. Like maybe now I am going to be a little bit more confident than what I was then. And I will say like, hey, I actually don't want to do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, how will they perceive that now? Are they like, whoa, like, okay, dickhead, like, why do you got to be? Because I think that all the time because I have gotten a lot more straightforward and a lot more honest and a lot more confident in what I do and do not want. And I'm not saying that's good or has to be accepted by anybody, but it's like, if you were like, hey, do you want to go get this food after here? I'm going to probably be like, not really. If it's a food that I don't want, if it's Chipotle, then I'm there. But, like, it is silly things like that to, again, relate to you in the way, we're like, I would go eat something that I didn't really want, but I would just say yes because I didn't want the confrontation. Like, I would do stuff like that all the time. Like, I'm not a partier, but I would go to parties with friends because they were like, this is what we're doing tonight. And I'm like, hell yeah, we are. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, I get there and I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't even drink to enjoy this. So it's like, I couldn't even make myself enjoy it. Right. And so it's like, the point I'm making is, in my opinion, I think it's needed and a great thing to constantly evolve and change. You know, like
Yeah.
now, yes, if I'm sitting here today and I'm like, wow, Shaena, we're friends and I'm going to try and be a nice person and blah, blah, blah. And then maybe in a month, if I'm like, F you, Shaena, we're not friends, I don't care about anything, like, then that's maybe
Well,
a drastic
sure,
change
sure,
that's a
yeah.
little weird. But to consistently learn new things about yourself, to me is like, and again, I'm getting like real high on like the soapbox here of preachiness, but like, I feel like that's what people should be doing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there should never be a point where you're just like, you get here and you figure this out and you're like, that's that now.
Yeah.
That's it. I got it. I did this thing. I really like watching football and I'm going to work. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can like those things, but figure some new things out about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
learn how to handle confrontation differently with the boss that you don't like, or learn how to mend a friendship in this way, or learn how to learn a new like, it doesn't have to be a skill or a hobby or a business or creative endeavor. It can be like how you communicate with other people. Again, like 5 years ago, whatever, I didn't like confrontation. So I was never an arguer ever, but I would never confidently handle that confrontation. You know, I would dance around things. I would be like, oh yeah, I mean, like, that's cool. Like, whatever. I mean, sure. And then just kind of like let it progressively get worse and never just be like, hey, let's solve this problem.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think about that stuff all the time where, and you said, you know, for people to re-meet you, like, I think about it and I'm like, there's so many people that I want to re-meet.
Yeah.
Like, there really is.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's past relationships or past friendships or anything, I'm like, I wish I could get the opportunity just to sit down with those people again and be like, okay, you're going to re-meet me now, because who you remember, I think, is pretty different than who is here now.
Sure.
Like, yes, I'm still Ross. There's still going to be things that are similar, but yeah, there's going to be differences. And I think I feel like that's supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of people let themselves do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredibly important and awesome that you have figured that out and that you are sitting here and saying, like, yes, there was an old Shaena, and yes, like, of course it's always been you, but there's new levels of you, because I feel like that's what we're supposed to do.